I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Governing Board. This is Thursday, November 18th, and we are ready to go with our regular meeting. So let's start with the pledge. If you're able, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have a quorum with one of us on the phone, hopefully for at least part of the meeting. Sharon is remotely going to be connecting with us at some point during the meeting. Is she here right now, or are we waiting, Katie? We're waiting. We're waiting. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, the first item of business is the approval of the minutes from October 21st. Were there any corrections, additions, errors that any of the board members found? Okay, here, seeing none, then we will accept the minutes as written. The first item of business is the EOMs from this past meetings that we have had. And those are posted. Tim?
Yes, before we vote for unanimous consent, I would like a question to ask the Sports and Bowling Pavilion Committee a question.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Chairman Vines, in your end of month report, you report that Mr. Harvesty has presented a bowling rate increase document. When would that be effective?
Yes, you have your that document is in your packet, or the EOM is in your packet, not the document.
I'm sorry?
Tim, give me just 1 second to get that, please.
I think that maybe I can clear this up at this point because the item was not listed separately on the agenda. I feel that we really need to have that on the agenda for Lisa's meeting in January so that it can be out in the public, because it was not posted correctly. It was hidden within a report. And I think that those are, the fees are for the following year. They would start July 1st. But I think that needs to be presented so that the public knows that what the schedule is. So if you've got more to say about that, go ahead, Lisa.
I do. Thank you, President Fitzsimons. Tim, there's actually not going to be an increase. I don't know which line item you were referring to, but there's actually a revision coming through, so we are going to add it to the January pavilion meeting again, because Barry had made an error on one of the line items. So I'm waiting for a revision on that document to come through, and you'll see it again in January before it gets forwarded for the budget.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't raising fees in the middle of the fiscal year.
We are not.
Okay,
no.
Thank you. That's all I'm concerned about.
No, you're correct.
Okay, any other questions on the EOMs? Okay, could I have a motion? Mr. Sloan, I believe that's yours.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to accept the November 2021 end-of-month reports as filed information.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then each time that we have our regular meeting, we highlight one of the committees that has done some work. So this time we'd like to identify the special election committee, and I'd like to have Marshall Adams, the chairperson of that committee, to kind of give us an update and talk a little bit about the committee that he has been working with. So come on up to the front. Where do I go here? Up to the podium. Okay. Then you have a place to put your book, your notes.
Hi. Well, first of all, we have
6 very good members of our committee. We've met twice. We'll be meeting again in a couple of weeks. We've been working on talking about having a forum and a meet and greet like you've done in the past. That's been approved by our committee. And we're beginning to develop questions that we will ask each candidate. Just kind of getting a start on that. We've got a ways to go here until March. So we have had one resignation from our committee. So we have a number of 6. So we also have now have had 10 people check out packets who are interested in becoming members of the board. Kathy is going to work on, and Martin, I think, are going to work on videos for each person to be able to, people can get that on the web. We'll be discussing candidate packets and the rules and regulations on people running for the board and the do's and don'ts. And so we'll be working on that this next time. Any questions at all? Tim?
Yeah, Marshall, thanks. I do have a question. Do you have a timeline for when the resumes for all the candidates will be posted?
January 3rd, I think, is the last, but we'll have to give Karen a little time to get the
Okay, so
signatures
mid-January?
verified, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
January 3 is the deadline for resumes and petitions to be returned to me so that they can be verified. The resumes move over to the PR department, to Katie O'Grady, and then they will be put, I believe, in the March Rec Center News. Is that correct? February Rec Center News. So that would be the quote-unquote posting deadline, because that's when the information appears for the community.
Yeah, we're hoping that people turn in their packets earlier so she has time to look through and verify signatures. That would help. All of them come in January 3rd would not be good. So, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your service, Marshall. Okay, let's go on to filings. Ann?
Thank you, President Fitzsimons. The October 2021 financials have been reviewed and accepted by the Budget and Finance Committee. They have been filed.
Thank you. Okay, then we go to our new business, which seems to me that it's not necessarily new business, but Donna is going to give us a report on the progress we've made on the RR&P revisions.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm excited to say that we have, the task force has ended its job as presenting a new clean document, and that hopefully all the governing board has received the first draft of that. And I'm asking for feedback by the 23rd so that at our November 30th committee meeting that can be presented for the committee for discussion. So anybody out there in the audience, anybody who listens, please know that the new revised RR&Ps will be discussed at the November 30th meeting. And I would just like to say that the board and the committee have received the first draft along with the original RR&Ps that have comments when you are looking at the clean draft, which is totally reorganized, that if you have an issue wondering where is that in the old document or how did that get changed, you have the original with the comments explaining what happened, and you have the new clean document with, again, a third piece, which is the new reorganization. And I would just like to say that when you're looking at the document for the board and the committee, don't look at formatting because that'll be done after we get the text in order. So it was a big job, and I'm excited to say that we're looking at maybe by the end of the year. So thank you.
Yes, we will hope that we can make a vote on this after the committee meets on the 30th. And simultaneously, as you're giving your ideas back to Donna, that then by the time we meet in December, we may be able to do some kind of an approval process. Roberta, you have a question?
Well, I was wondering if that draft was going to be posted for the clubs to see before the charter clubs meeting.
I don't believe that's the intention. I think that the subcommittee is presenting to the Chartered Clubs Committee as the first go-around, because there might be significant changes, at that point.
So at what point do the clubs get to look at it?
Hopefully they come on the 30th and see what is being presented.
Okay.
And you have to remember that the Chartered Clubs Committee is representing the clubs. So it's at that point.
So
Ann?
won't that be posted on board docs before the meeting, though, that people could go in and look at it?
Yes. Lisa?
Sue, will properties and B&F see this before it comes back to the workshop in December for the financials and the property section?
That's not really our intent. The RR&Ps are an assignment of the Chartered Clubs Committee. But as you're reading it, if you think that there's something in there that does affect those other two committees, we have those chairs of those committees sitting on the board right now, so you would be able to get that information back to Donna. But typically, no, we don't route that. We do route all of our capital projects and through all of the committees, but we do not do that with all items. Other questions? Okay, let's move on. That was an information item. The next item is a policy revision, and there are two policy revisions coming from our B&F committee. Side conversations. Okay, there are two coming from B&F, and because B&F just met 2 days ago, this did not come to our workshop. But the two that Ann is going to be talking about are really kind of almost editorial kind of things, or grammatical things, or they're pretty simple. So we'll start the discussion by having a motion to open up an opportunity to discuss these, and then we'll decide if we are comfortable with them or if you want to wait for another month before we vote. But we'll have that option. Ann?
Thank you, President Fitzsimons. Per recommendation of the Budget and Finance Committee, I move that the governing board approve the removal of language at section 3.1, refunding, in policy FY2022-23, property owner changes and refunds of member dues and fees, as redlined.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Donna? Now we can open up discussion. You want to give us some background, Ann?
What this does is merely remove redundant language. We're removing exactly what is above that portion of the, in the policy. It just removes duplicate language. It's just a cleanup. So it's not changing anything policy-wise.
Okay. Any comments, questions from the board? Are you comfortable going ahead with the vote now?
Yes.
Okay. Then you want to read the motion again, please, Ann?
Yes, per recommendation by the B&F Budget and Finance Committee, I move that the governing board approve the removal of language at section 3.1, refunding, in policy FY2023, property owner changes and refunds of member dues and fees, as redlined.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries and the change will be made. Okay, let's go ahead to 5.0. 05. We have eliminated 03 and 04 because the BNF was not ready with the exact language. They wanted to change those two policies. Sometimes items get put onto the agenda because they have to be on for 48 hours prior. And since BNF just met 2 days ago, that's why they're on. And we can't add anything, but we certainly can identify two items or items that we will wait until the next time to deal with. So that's what's happening to policy 04 and 10. Okay, so now Deb Long is going to give us an update on the REDS program.
Good morning. So the REDS program started back in February 2020. What does REDS stand for? REDS stands for Real Estate Data Services. And what does REDS do? It's a daily download of any of the 17,000 properties that we have that have changed the way that they hold title. What we do is review them to see if there's been change of ownership and if it impacts any of the APF or annual owner member dues. The REDS program, what is the cost of it? Well, it started in February of 2020, and it normally costs about $900 a month. It's based off of how many homes in the community. What are the benefits to the owner members? Most owner members don't know they're supposed to bring in the deed when they have changed the way that they hold title. So owner member dues can be collected from the date of the change of the title. So this way they can avoid possible retroactive charges for past years. It also benefits recreation centers of Sun City West so that we know who the correct owners on the property are. What are the benefits to the recreation centers? Since we started in February of 2020, we've collected about $700,000 in fees. 542,000 of them were from 2 of 2020 to 6 of 21. And currently, this fiscal year, we've collected about 158,000. 63% of that is in APF fees, and 37% is in owner dues and transfer fees. Which one? I didn't put that in my new notes. What did?
It's up there,
You,
the last sentence on
using a denominator of $3,500, about 126 of the APFs posted in the past 20 months has some correlation to the program. So, and then you've got the graph. So,
past 20 months, so it's half. 5%.
anybody have any questions?
Any questions on the board? This is a new program, and I think that it's done a great job and a great service to us, and I thank you for your knowledge and your ability to work with this program to improve our collection process.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is semi-related to what we were just talking about, and it's another one of those that's kind of cleaning up the language, and I'll let Ann make the motion, and then we can have a discussion.
Thank you, President Fitzsimons. Per recommendation by the Budget and Finance Committee, I move that the governing board approve the revision of language at subsection 3.4.4 of policy FY17, asset preservation fee, as redlined.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jim Sloan, thank you. Okay, now, Ann, give us the information about this change.
Thank you. FY17 has been scrutinized quite intensely over the last year by the Budget and Finance Committee. In fact, we had a group of a couple of our members last year work on it extensively, and I have to compliment Deb Long for all that she has done with this. I think you may have to field some of these questions for me, Deb, but she has been instrumental in seeing that this policy does what it is intended to do. And also cleaning up some areas where we have realized that there's some unclear language, or in the instance today, and Deb, you correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but we have two portions of the policy that are in conflict. So what we're trying to do is bring the two portions of the policy in line with each other. The part that will be redlined says that it will now read, ownership of the former residential unit must hold a minimum of 50% ownership in the new owner-occupied, which is the primary number of the owner member cards association with the property residential unit. And this concerns changes in ownership. And Deb, would you mind coming up and explaining this a little bit better for everyone so I don't, Deb deals with this on a regular basis, so I think she will be better at making it clear.
So what we're trying to do is make the 3.4.4 be comparable to the 3.1.1. 3.1.1 says that is for somebody that currently owns a home and they're changing the way that they hold title. And as long as they haven't changed it more than 50%, there is no charge of the APF fee. The 3.4.4 currently says that if they are buying a new home, that they cannot change ownership. It has to be identical owners. So you could not add anybody onto title. If you were purchasing a new home, you would not get your APF fee back. So we're trying to change it to make it so it's the same as the 3.1.1, so that if they change ownership less than 50%, that they will still get their refund. So that the two of them are identical, current ownership or new ownership.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Roberta?
All right, I read it last night, and it took me 4 times to figure out what you're trying to say. And I think if you put residential unit before the parentheses, it would make a lot more sense.
This is what, yeah.
Because it's hard to understand that I'm going all the way down to the end of the sentence and say you're talking about a residential unit. So, like I said, it took me 4 times. I'm a little slow sometimes, but that's where the confusion was. By the time I got to I said, oh, residential unit. If that had been ahead of the parentheses, then I would have understood it.
Our attorney is the one that drafts this, and he tries to make that all of the portions read the same. So all of this is for your owner-occupied residence. So it is kind of redundant when he puts primary number, owner-occupied, but it has to be in each section. And he tries to keep it similar. So this has all been rewritten by our attorney.
So it's attorney language.
Correct.
It doesn't make it readable, of course not, not to those of us who aren't attorneys. Any other?
Yeah, I have
Tim?
a question. So if I read 3.1.1, give you an example, my wife and I jointly own a house. My wife dies. I want to put both my kids on the deed because I'm old and infirmed. Because my ownership goes from 50 to 33%, they have to pay asset preservation fee.
That is correct.
Does that seem fair?
Well, the proper way to be doing it generally is to do a beneficiary deed instead of adding them to your title. And again, I'm not an attorney, I can't give you legal advice, but that would be the correct way to
But
do it.
they would still pay the asset fee even if that was the case, wouldn't they?
When they inherit the property after your passing. So if you do it while you are still alive and you add them to title, they're going to start paying owner member dues. So they may be paying for 5 years, 6 years. Or you wait and do a beneficiary deed and then they pay when they inherit the home.
I thought the idea of this was to help transfers among family members, that they wouldn't have to come in and pay an asset preservation fee.
No. No, that was part of the REDS program and the changing of the APF over a year ago. Adding it so that people that inherit a home have to pay that APF fee. Because a good portion of them never paid an APF fee because they owned the property prior to 2000. So that was a big change back in 2020, I believe, in February.
Just one other comment. I agree with Roberta, this language is very cumbersome. But in 3.1, you put an example in there which makes it a little easier to understand in sixth grade English, and I would suggest you do the same thing for 3.4.4.
Can run that past the attorney if you'd like.
Okay, any other comments? We've had two suggestions, but I think we need to do a vote, and if we vote it down, then we would return it to the attorney. Correct? Okay, so Ann, would you repeat the motion, please?
Per recommendation by the Budget and Finance Committee, I move that the governing board approve the revision of language at subsection 3.4.4 of policy FY17, asset preservation fee, as redlined.
Okay, let's do a hand vote. All those in favor, raise their hand.
You can't vote.
4 is, Sharon's not online.
You can't vote,
Okay,
so.
oh, I can't vote, that's right. Sorry, I can vote for a tie. Are those opposed? 1, 2, 3, so I get to vote. Okay, I vote in favor of it, so the motion passes. No, because Sharon, okay, parliamentarian, where are we at? Oh, it's a tie, so it loses, you're right, we had to have 5. Okay, so this will then go back to the attorney or to the committee, that to B&F, and they will most likely then ask the attorney to make it into language that's readable. And then it will come back to us. Karen?
Could I have a recount on that, because I have to be sure that we have this correct.
Okay, the people that voted in favor of it, raise your hand again.
And I need to write everybody down.
So Jim, Donna, and Ann.
Is that correct?
Yes, and then the people that voted against, raise your hand. So Roberta, Tim, and Lisa. And, no, Sharon's not here. She's not here, she's not voting, but we. Oh. Abstention doesn't count.
Right, non-presence. So now Sue is voting.
Yes, so
So we have a vote of 4 to 3.
so it does pass.
Thank you much.
Okay, all right, so the motion has passed. All right, we've got that correct now, thank you. I missed that, I never thought to ask.
He abstained.
Yeah, he abstained, so it doesn't count. Okay, tricky business up here. Okay, all right, let's go on to item 5.07. These next two policies are ones that we had at our workshop and discussed and talked about, and now they're coming to us for a vote, so I will let Tim take care of both of those items.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. After discussion and review by the governing board at its November 12th, 2021 workshop, I move that the governing board approve the revision of language at section 1.0, general / subsections 1.1 and 1.2 of policy L9. The name of that policy is filling vacancies of the governing board as redlined.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Donna. Discussion, Tim, you want to talk us through this item?
Sure, this is, this change in very simple language is to clarify and prioritize the difference between Bylaw 4.1 and Policy L9. L9 was expanded to fill any vacancy and not just vacancies when a director resigns, as was stated in the red line version.
Okay,
Just to say even further, the bylaw 4.17 has priority over the policy L9, and that is the direction in which the vote should go. The use of this policy and bylaw should go.
and this clarifies the questions that we had several months ago. Okay, comments, questions on the board? Harry?
Tim, is there any reason, I guess, to me, 1.91 reads that it's this, but what you're saying, it's got to go back to the bylaws. So why even have this? Now, my personal feeling is, I think this, what was stated in L9 should be in the bylaws, because I think it's better for the board to have an interview process than a person selecting the members of the governing board. And if we want to get more people involved in coming on the board, to me, there's no better way for them to get involved to say, wait a minute, I'll go try this for 1 year and see what it's like, rather than, as in the case, and nothing against you and Jim, but you guys have already experienced it, been involved, and this is an opportunity for somebody new to get involved in our community, and we want to especially get younger people involved. And so I think this L9 provision should be part of the bylaws, and it should be that this is, it comes to a committee, it comes before the board, they interview them, and they know and make their decisions after being interviewed.
And Harry, you're certainly eligible to try to make a change to the bylaw. Basically, what this exercise is just to clarify the difference between the bylaw and the policy. Bylaw 4.17 says the filling of vacancies is a governing board responsibility. What L9 says is the filling of vacancies is the governing board's responsibility under Bylaw 4.17. This policy establishes a procedure for filling any vacancy on the governing board when following bylaw section 4.1 fails to fill a vacancy. I don't know if that answers your concern, but it was basically just to prioritize and clarify the difference between the two.
Well, is there any reason to have L9? I think the bylaws says what to do, and if they don't do it, yes, then it goes to L9, but I don't know who's not going to do it. I think this is wasted language.
Well, I don't have an answer for that.
That may be because this is getting into procedures that you might follow rather than policy, but you make a good point. Lisa?
Thank you, President Fitzsimons. Tim, I just have a question. I was just a little confused when I was reading what you submitted for red line as opposed to what the original policy states in 1.1. It says this policy establishes a procedure for filling vacancies. But if I look on the red line under 1.1, it says the filling of vacancies is the governing board responsibility, but it's not in red. So
you say it should be in red?
well, you can't just go black to black and not change.
We could change it to red, Lisa.
Well, them's the rules.
So the red part would be the filling of vacancies? Are those
I'm
words?
asking, the only reason I'm asking Tim is because I don't know if he wanted it there or if it was just inadvertently left there by mistake or what we were supposed to do.
We could have it redlined, or we could have it red for you. Send it back.
Well, first of all, we have a motion on the floor, and we should vote on this item before we decide to do that.
Well, I don't know that the color of the words indicates anything about the policy other than what the changes that were put in and taken out. So the language itself stays, whether it's going to be red or black. So, we'd have to ask the parliamentarian if all changes have to be read.
Excuse me, but
Ann?
President Fitzsimons, I'm not following what should be black that is red, or what should be red that is black. If I missed something here.
Actually, Lisa, let me help with this. Basically, what we did is we took out 1.2, okay? And that's what the sentence up in the black is. So
Okay.
we redlined the 1.2 and just included that in 1.1.
Okay, I
So the
understand that better.
language was there, we're just changing the section on which it is.
Okay, that explains what happened. Okay.
So then in theory, it should be red?
It should be red because it was moved.
Thank you, Karen.
Not changed, but moved, relocated. Okay. Okay, other questions, comments from the board? Anybody from the audience? Understanding what we're doing? Kay?
Thank you. Kay Williams, 101-631. As a member of the board that wrote the policy, it was written as it is because we can't put procedures in a bylaw to clarify the discussion the board was just handling. It was felt that it needed to be put in writing somewhere as a guide and a procedure consistently followed for all vacancies that happened midterm, not affecting the regular annual elections, obviously. But it was there for that purpose, to provide consistency, transparency, and fairness to our owner members. I think what you're creating here is a rubber rule, and our community deserves better than rubber rules. Thank you.
Kay, if I could, when you wrote this policy, you wrote it an elected official or appointed governing board when they retire. And basically what we're doing is we're taking out retire and says any vacancy.
The
So
original was resignations and retirements and death.
Well,
You're
that's,
saying that's not what you're seeing now?
yes.
Okay, that was
I mean,
certainly the intent, and while it's been used for 7 years very effectively to fill vacancies. So I agree with Harry, if you're going to water it down to where it has no practical purpose, delete it.
It does
Makes
have a
no
practical
sense to have it
purpose.
as it is.
If 4.17 cannot result in a board member being elected or appointed, then we go to policy L.9. The original L.9 that we're changing, 1.1 says this policy establishes procedure for filling vacancies on the governing board when an elected or appointed governing board director resigns, period.
Well,
Okay,
when someone passes away, they've resigned from a lot of things, haven't they?
Thank you, Kay.
okay. All right, will you read the motion again, and let's move to a vote?
After discussion and review by the governing board at its November 12th, 2021 workshop, I move that the governing board approve the revision of language at section 1.0, general/subsections 1.1 and 1.2 of policy L09, filling vacancies of the governing board as redlined.
Okay, please, all in favor, raise your hand. Somebody counting for me? Oh, that's right, I can't vote. I can't vote, sorry. Okay, those opposed? 2. Okay, the motion passes. We'll make the appropriate changes. Okay, continue on, Tim, with the next item.
All right. After discussion and review at the governing board workshop at its November 12th, 2021 workshop, I move that the governing board approve the revision of language at section 1.0, general, and subsections 2.1.5 of policy L12, records of member review as redlined.
Do we have a second? Roberta, second. Okay, Tim, give us the background.
Basically, what this does is it moves this policy into the digital age while still providing opportunities for people that are still in the analog age to review documents that they might have from the board and association operations.
Okay, any questions from the board? Comments? Seeing none, any from the audience? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, then we have Carl Wilhelm, who is going to bring us up to date with the CIP.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm happy to report that this year's capital project or capital improvement list proposal required to be given to the general manager on December 1st has been reviewed by all of the policy committees, charter clubs, properties, and budget and finance. Budget and finance reviewed it yesterday. You got an opportunity as the governing board to see the project, the capital list at your workshop. So if Ann Brown by chance has any comments to make or any recommendations or anything like that?
None from my committee.
Okay, so you have all seen this capital list. Nothing has changed. Do you have an interest in me in repeating it, or do you have any questions?
Ann?
I just have one question that has come up in reflection of something that Roberta Davidson, who's chairman of the Properties Committee, said. And I just wondered if we needed to look at it a little bit further. Looking at Rip and Sew with the request for cabinets, Roberta made the comment that her committee toured this property after this had come forward, and that there were other rooms in the complex that perhaps needed this even more than this club did. And I'm just wondering if we should take a look at that as to where these changes are really needed, if we could get any economies of scale by doing a larger scale project, or if, how important this is in the whole scheme of things. I'm just throwing out some general questions based on the concerns that Roberta commented.
Tim?
Yes, if I might, I would like to ask Russ Boston a question. Russ, do you have a schedule for when you go around, when you go around to the rooms and check on the various aspects of the cabinetry and that sort of thing?
Particularly, no, not with cabinetry. That's usually either based by a club request, as this one was, or through a properties walkthrough. Tim, you'll remember going through Silvercraft, how poorly that was in condition. That's still that way. It made the budget 3 times. It failed 3 times. The club has no interest in doing it because they don't want to go through the procedures of moving their stuff out. However, the need definitely outweighs there than it does at Rip and Sew in our judgment.
Okay, so it's up to the clubs to ask for this particular item to be fixed or repaired.
Well, in general, yes. Properties put it on their list, as I said, 3 years in a row. We get to cutting. That was just one area cut because they function. They're just unsightly when you go in there. I'll say Rip and Sew has a higher bar of what's acceptable to them than Silvercraft does, based on the way they view it.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Other questions from the board? One of the questions I had, go ahead, Harry.
My question would be is, if we're trying to make this a top #1 organization as a retirement community, I think how these clubs look, whether they want it fixed or not, has a great bearing as people go around and look at it. I think, we need to keep things up. and keep it looking good if we want to attract new people to our community. So I think just whether the club says they need it or not is a bearing, but I don't think it should be the total ramification.
Okay, other comments? Yes, Roberta.
Well, we were given the impression from the presentation that the cupboards were falling off the hinges. That we noticed there were some cupboards on the side that did need to be replaced, some lower cupboards. But the bigger cupboards, we didn't feel needed to be a priority in the budget at this time. After we saw them compared to the presentation.
Okay, and my comment is I wonder if with these items that are on this list, if the board is interested on going on a little field trip and taking a look at these items. One of the concerns I had is we're talking about storage areas and at Beardsley, and I thought, okay, exactly where is that? And does that going to include the Clay Club and things like that? And then Carl said, no, it doesn't include the Clay Club outdoor enclosures. So is there an interest on the board that we kind of pull together a little tour and we go to these places, or you want to do that on your own? What do you feel about that?
Madam Chairman, isn't
Tim?
that really the purview of the Properties Committee? And then have them make a recommendation to the board?
Yes. And they've done their tours, but it's different when now you're looking at a specific thing.
I think
And
last time,
that could possibly be their route, sure.
when we discussed this at the workshop, there was a comment made that under the new procedures, the clubs are turning in their requests for space changes before the property committee even meets. And
Right.
there was some discussion in
Right.
there, and I forget how it ended up, but that those requests should be passed by the properties committee before that even goes to Russ.
Right, we need to coordinate the tours and the request system. And because we've, begun those requests so much earlier, that's what has happened. And so we have to fix the timing. But these are specific, and even on the properties tour, unless they knew the specific request that are listed here, they wouldn't have known to look at those things. So it may take another tour.
Either that or they saw it and it wasn't obvious to them that it needed to be
Right,
fixed.
that's right, because they wouldn't have known about the theft issues and some of the things that have caused there to be items on this list. Ann?
Well, I think that what may have happened here is one club sees what they feel is a need, and I appreciate what Rip and Sew does and all the charitable work they do, but it may be a case of the squeaky wheel is going to get the grease. And I am very appreciative of what Harry said. If we've got a first-class organization, we need to have everything looking good, not just, okay, why does this room look so good? Well, maybe I'll join this club. This looks good, but the other club, well, maybe not. I'd rather see us do an approach, and I don't know if I'm the best one to make that decision. It may be up to operations because they have a better look at what is really needs to be done, whether it's falling off the hinges or whether it just needs a little bit of repair and maintenance to it. I would rather have that come from someone else. I'm not sure I'm a good person to make that decision.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, I'd just
Yes.
like to add to what Harry said, in that these spaces belong to the association. We just let the clubs use them. And I agree with Harry that if we want to have a first-class operation, we did have first-class spaces.
Right. And I think that in the past, certain things are upgraded without club request. Example would be the countertops at Coons. That was on a routine replacement. You didn't wait for the club to identify that they needed that. But maybe cabinets are in a different category. And maybe that's something that Russ can include in his rotation kind of thing. Carl?
I would say that you're all spot on with your observation of making sure that our standards are held to the highest. I would say that I'm pleased to say that 90% of our rooms have been evaluated either by properties or by staff, and those improvements have been made to date. So in the conversation of cabinetry, R.H. Johnson would be the unique situation where the cabinets for Rip and Sew are in better condition than Silvercraft's and maybe some other areas that get a higher use. So this really is the last area of cabinetry to kind of solve. So, but I just want to make it clear that in our yearly tours, this is an area. So if staff sees, old conditions, it's discussed clearly with properties, and then they make that recommendation, whether it becomes a capital item on our project list. Mm-hmm. And that recommendation, like Russ said, for Silvercraft has been brought up. And the strong club that Silvercraft is, has not wanted to have their cabinetry changed. So that's an efficiency in some regards too, because that project is in the assumption is not just cabinetry. That leads to countertops and sinks. Their club is unique, deserve it, but that price tag would be much larger than what we're talking about at Rip and Sew.
Okay, where do we want to go with this? Do we want to suggest that Properties Committee goes back and does a check, or are you interested in doing a field trip? What do you think? Harry?
Properties, that's where.
Okay. Jim?
I just soon have properties.
Okay. Lisa?
I'll leave it up to properties.
Ann?
Properties, please.
Donna?
Properties.
Okay, are you okay with that, Roberta? It's your committee.
We did have a committee vote on it, but that was from the presentation.
Correct.
After we toured the room and compared it to the cabinetry in other parts of Johnson, that like ceramics and, as Carl said, the lapidary and that whole area over there, that Rip and Sew compared to them are in better shape.
Okay, that's for the one item. I'm talking about all of the items on here. Do you want to go back to finding out exactly where those things are?
No, I'm just talking Rip and Sew.
Okay.
Yeah, the others, like Clay Club, we went through and
The timing was okay.
saw where they wanted their monitor station and what would be, and we agreed with that.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I think Properties has pretty well, with their tours and their policies put in place, can handle the situation. I think where the bugaboo comes in is the policy of having the clubs put their CR forms in so early before Properties has a chance to take a look at them. So maybe that's where we should be looking to fix this problem.
Yes, or better communication with what the projects are being, all those projects that are being requested, and then Roberta can schedule accordingly. For example, if she finds out that, Beardsley has a number of club requests, then make sure that that's one of your first tours before you do your recommendations. Would that work?
Okay, part of the issue is clubs have to have their requests in July.
Right, so that Carl can get an estimate on cost.
Right. So by the time we get our tours, which usually occur in October, it's already gone to chartered clubs.
Right, because that's the first stop.
Right. And then it came, and they agreed with it, and then it came to properties. But we did have some objection to it in our committee. It wasn't a unanimous vote.
You're talking about the one, the Rip and Sew item. Yeah. Okay, what about the maintenance yard area and the arts and crafts storage yard and those other items on the list?
That's
Has your
part of
properties
Carl's.
committee?
That doesn't come to properties, but we saw where it was in our tours.
You did, okay.
Agreed to it.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah,
So
but
you
we
did
didn't
cover
vote on
that.
it specifically because that's part of Carl's capital project.
Okay. All right, Russ.
So the environmental services maintenance yard actually came from properties last year. That's how it ended up on this list.
Okay,
And going back to rip and sew, I have a fix for that as well. Tim, you'll remember back when we were dealing with the space allocations and the confusion every time stained glass brought to your committee. The committee was sent individually at their leisure to bring back the information to a meeting. So instead of changing Carl's schedule strategy, because I know it does become an issue, prior to voting on this could have been a simple get out, take a look, and come back with your vote. You don't necessarily have to go as a group, just in a timely fashion where they could bring it back to your next scheduled meeting. That would be an easy fix to that.
good solution.
And I also want to point out that the 3 times Silvercraft ended up on the docket, it did not get removed based on them putting up, we don't want to deal with it. It was simply, we had to cut numbers. That was just one of the things that got cut. I just wanted to clear that up.
Which may happen to any of the items that are on this list as well.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Because this is only early in the budget process. We may find that we don't have the money and we're not going to approve it later on.
Correct.
So it's kind of us getting used to the fact that this is a very preliminary process.
Yes.
And not a final vote time. So, okay. Any other questions or comments or things that you want to talk about, Carl, or you want to highlight?
I will highlight that due to the great discussion from Budget and Finance, when we got to our allowance portion of the capital list, there was discussion of changing the verbiage for changing demographics, so that's in discussion right now. So in the future date, you might see changing demographics with a new title and an explanation. Okay, so not that that catches anybody off guard. The dollar amount doesn't change at this point. And then a further discussion on the energy conservation allowance. It was brought up, why wouldn't that be considered a new capital line item? And we agree. From a staff perspective, the CFO, general manager. So we are, when you see this in your future presentation from the general manager, you'll see energy conservation with a $30,000 amount just to have as an allowance for other unknown needs. But the 370 will be moved to a new capital line item, just for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all I have.
Any other questions from the board? From the audience? Okay, thank you very much, Carl. Okay, then on to goals attainment. One of the things that the board did this year is to establish goals, and we worked in, as I'm going backwards here, anything, Todd, on this irrigation that you wanted to cover? That was part of the discussion with Carl. There was a question asked at the last, either one of the committee meetings, or maybe it was at our last meeting that we had. And so Todd has some answers and explanations for us.
Okay, good morning. Today I just have a quick update on the Grandview Irrigation and Turf Reduction Project. This is phase 1, which is currently funded in the budget right now. That includes the irrigation and turf reduction design, and right now we're looking at about 35 to 40 acres of turf removal over at Grandview in this project. Installation of road crossing main lines, a new pump station or distribution station, all the required permits for the project. Also includes an allowance to submit documents on behalf of the rec centers for the Arizona Protection Fund grant through the Office of Arizona Tourism. And then this grant money received will be used to help fund the project as far as turf reduction goes. All right, the field survey has been completed, and that was done back in October last month. The irrigation consultant, he has completed his survey of the golf course, and we should have some drawings to review and make comments on probably by the end of the year. The hydraulic analysis has been completed. That's what determines the size of pipes, whether it's main lines or laterals throughout the golf course. And then we've requested information on utilities that are in the roadways around the Grandview Golf Course, and then we should have that information before the end of the year. That takes about 6 to 8 weeks to complete that process. And then staff met with Watertronics, it's a pump company, to review the existing pump station and determine the needs of the new system. And just to note that we normally a new pump station would take about 9 weeks to get in. With everything that's going on today, with a shortage of labor and also with goods, we're looking at about 23 weeks from start to finish on a new pump station. And then I've put together a timeline, and I'll continue to update this as we go through the project. For phase one, the installation mainline road crossings are scheduled for May and June of next year. And I'd just like to note that the golf course will not need to be closed for this. They just run the main lines right next to the old one, so there's no disruption in the golf course at all. And it's the same with the pump station. When we put the new pump station in the summer, it's just going to be a couple days that we're going to be down for that pump station once they get everything hooked up. So no disruption to play. We won't need to close. And then the main portion of the project, the irrigation and turf reduction, is scheduled to start in spring of 2023. This looks to be about a 5 to 6 month project from start to finish. And then we would reopen the golf course right after the fall overseeding in October, probably mid-October. And as I mentioned, this timeline, it will be updated as we go. And then as soon as I have drawings of turf reduction, I will present that, and we can make comments and suggestions on that as we go through the project. Any questions?
Any questions of the board? Ann?
Chairman Fitzsimons, I might point out that we had a suggestion at the Budget and Finance Committee about showing maps of this, and Todd was very receptive to making sure that we're using good communication with our owner members.
Yes, and developing, like you say, maps so that people can see where the turf will be going away.
Yes, we'll have those available online, and then maybe even in the pro shop at Grandview, we'll have those available so the members can see them as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to our goals attainment. The board set goals, and we worked in small committees to identify what we were going to do. And so now each of those groups of people that work together are charting the progress and understanding that under each one of these goals, they may have had 4 or 5 activities or maybe 2 activities that they were going to accomplish. So here's the report back. And Donna, you want to just say why you're at 0 with chartered clubs?
Well, I think we're at 0 until we get a clean copy of new and revised RR&Ps. And as far as the tax status issues concerning the RR&Ps, I think that the RR&Ps have handled any tax issues that needed to be addressed in the RR&Ps. So until we get a clean copy of RR&Ps, I think that remains at 0.
Makes sense. All right. The master plan, Jim, you're going to speak to that?
We are at 10%, and I'm on the agenda next to speak about this
Yes.
specifically, so I'll leave it at 10% for now.
No, you can talk right now.
Okay. 10%, but this week has been an active week for the master planning group. And yesterday, a number of the work group were interviewed by Epic Research, and I found that I was one of those people that found it fulfilling, and they were listening to what we thought should be happening over the next several years. This is like take out a crystal ball and see what you can see kind of thing, but there are things commonalities that need to be integrated into any planning, multi-generational facilities, those types of things. But also the ethos and the culture of Sun City West needs to be considered in stuff that we are planning. And I indicated that I thought that was a culture of caring and community and collegial stuff. And so I was happy with what happened. I don't know how many got interviewed yesterday. There are more going to happen today after this meeting. So I'm pleased where we are. So we're way ahead of 10% at this point, but I'm not sure where we are. There has been one other issue. There has been research done in collecting data from around the country and the world on what's happening with other communities and trends and white papers, insurance companies, all that sort of thing. So that data will be forthcoming and will all be collated into a document that will be prepared with some suggestions. And then we move forward with formulating plans and bring it to the governing board for approval and moving forward with it.
Okay, thank
Any
you.
questions? I'm happy to answer questions if I can.
Any questions? Okay. The next one is improving association communication. Ann, are you going to talk to that? Ann and Lisa.
I got a hearty approval to talk from Lisa. Lisa Vines and Katie O'Grady and I were charged with this, and it has more than one prong to the plan. One of the first ones was to try to get more people running for the governing board, and I think we can say we've gotten that one 100% right now with the number of petitions that have been
As long as they
taken out.
get the signatures.
But I especially want to compliment Katie and also the IT and audiovisual team who have assisted us, and give a shout out to our local radio station. Over the last couple of weeks, Lisa Vines, Roberta Davidson, and Sharon Heddick have been interviewed for the radio about their work on the governing board and encouraging people to run. Jim Sloan, Sue Fitzsimons, and I made videos, and I don't think we're going to win any Oscars, but we've been getting lots of hits on the website. I personally have not looked at mine. I don't want to look at mine, but I will say that we are getting more people who are taking out petitions this year and hopefully stimulating an interest in running for the board. We will have 4 positions this year, 3 for 3-year terms and 1 for a 2-year term. Is that correct? Yes. The other thing that we've done is we're trying to quell rumors. And rumors abound all the time, but you may have seen in the Rec Center News a little blurb saying, "Have you heard?" Well, if you've heard of anything, heard any good rumors, please let the Rec Center's communications staff know, and they will try to tell you exactly what's behind them. The first one that got squashed was the fact that Sun City West was going to be split in 2. It is, but it's through legislative districts and not because of anything that the association is doing. So it's easy for these things to get started, but we also have a way that we can squash them or get out the correct information to people. So appreciate that. We're putting ourselves at about 40% done. The category of stimulating interest in the governing board is probably at 100%. The rest of it will be ongoing throughout the year, but we do want to improve communications throughout our community.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, Tim, you were kind of in charge of bylaws and policies, and 95%,
Yes.
well.
Well, we tackled the 2 big ones today earlier. The C issues, which are the committee issues, standing and special committees, annual election of directors, and standing committees of the governing board, those all look fine. I would request no change to those. Same with the membership, those 2 policies look fine. The only policy that I'm really still trying to work through is L3, and its effective utilization of legal services, because there's some language in there that I don't quite understand, and I'll need to take another look at it before I make any recommendations on what that might be. So.
Good progress. Thank you very much. Okay, and we move along. We are at the end of the agenda and time for comments from the directors. So are there comments? Roberta, want to go first?
No comment.
Tim?
I have no further comments, thank you.
Donna?
No comment.
Ann?
No comments.
Lisa?
Yeah, I just want to thank Deb Long for her presentation, for introducing us to the REDS program and really giving such a great presentation and explaining that in such great detail. Thanks, Deb.
Jim?
No comment?
Harry? No comment. Okay, Bill, you have a couple of comments.
Thank you, Sue. Good morning. Couple things I want to touch on. One, I want to reach out to James Riley and give him a big thank you and kudos, as well as Katie, for the upcoming bring-in, per se, of the Sheriff's Department. We've been seeing a little bit of issue throughout our community, and we want to make sure that Maricopa County stays involved in a lot of things that go on here. Katie or Riley, if you want to, you have a microphone up there, Katie? Sure. All right.
Kudos to Casey as well. She put on that Maricopa County Safety Fair the other night, and that sparked this interest. And so Casey and Riley and I have been working with the Sheriff's Department, and they were just really interested in hearing from the residents at that safety fair, so they want to come out again. We've targeted the date of November 30th in the social hall. It's probably going to be 10 a.m. to noon, but we'll get those details finalized hopefully today and get it out in next week's e-news. It'll be the District 3 guys who are down there on Dysart, so they know this area. This is their patrol area. They'll be able to answer questions about homelessness. You know, we heard at the last BNF meeting, some of these capital projects are related to closing fencing to keep some of those folks from coming into the community, just different increases in crime and that sort of thing. So look for that in the e-news and attend. It'll be a great opportunity to get your questions answered firsthand from the local sheriff's guys.
Thank you. Moving on, you saw the capital presentation today and throughout your workshop, and it's been run through all of our committees thus far. It's aggressive, but we're very confident that we can come up with a budget once this thing is somewhat finalized and sent to our office in the beginning of December. We'll be playing with things such as the upcoming minimum wage requirements from the statewide level. Taking a hard look, unfortunately, at inflation, the increase in insurance costs, unfortunately, and what comes down the pike at the federal level when it comes to mask wearing and vaccine mandates and those types of things coming our way. So we're kind of bracing for that, but that all kind of plays into the operational picture of what we do here. And with the kind of an upsurge and an uptick in numbers, we are seeing a little bit of COVID activity taking place at some of our venues, which is unfortunate by all means, but we just hope everybody's doing the right thing and being as safe as we know how, moving this thing along. And then lastly, I'd like to introduce Brandy Moss, who is in town today, as well as yesterday, and she is one of our consultants working with us from Epic Strategies when it comes to helping us put our master plan together. And I know Brandy is here to help interview some of you all today as far as getting the governing board's input on some of these things and moving this forward. But I think Jim gave a really good update as to where we are, but one of the big next steps that we're kind of trying to tackle now, especially with all the new residents coming in through the winter season, is now working on a series of surveys so we can get some good information, particularly from the new folks who have moved in here within the last couple of years, and getting some kind of a matching data from folks who have lived here for a long time to kind of see where we're at, where we're going, and projecting where we go in the future. So pretty excited about that. And I know you'll have fun with her. And thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Any comments from the audience? Must be.
Tom Jones, 119030. In regards to the Maricopa County law enforcement, I'm also with the Prides. We're out there Saturday morning, R.H. Johnson, Maker, other areas, and we too have concerns about traffic, and we would like, if we are not represented, we would like to be represented when they discuss the traffic situations, if possible, Katie. Thank you.
Okay, Casey's on it. Okay, anybody else to make, from the audience to make a comment? Anything from cyberspace? Katie? No? Okay, nothing from the cloud. Okay, I'd just like to welcome, all right, tell everybody to have a good Turkey Day. And our next meeting, our workshop meeting will be December 10th. And we also have a meeting scheduled for December 16th, but keep checking the emails because we may just decide to have just one meeting and have a regular meeting on the 10th and then eliminate the one on the 16th. I think that that's probably going to be pretty realistic for us. So we'll keep you informed on that. And of course, all of our meetings are being held at Kuntz in room 5 for the month of December. So remember that change. Okay, then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.